Hi, I'm Wynne Pirini, and 19 years ago after leaving Kaitaia College I trained as a chemical and materials engineer. But as you'll see later in my short story, my qualifications counted for very little. Anyway, after enjoying a good career back in 2006 I realised I was yearning to be in business for myself. But somehow the idea seemed well beyond my capabilities and was just too risky. However, one night I sat there quietly imagining what it would be like to be old and retired and reflecting back upon the experiences of my life. And I thought, gee, wouldn't it be terrible to look back with regret because I'd been too scared, too timid to take risks and really live my life? And the more I thought about this, the more I became convinced that I really needed to do something because I truly wanted to have experiences and excitement and build meaningful relationships and lead a full life. Well, it was at that time when I made a crazy decision. And at the end of 2006, I resigned from my job, sold all of my assets, bought a plane ticket to see the world with my girlfriend, Lauren McKee. And we had an amazing time. We met some awesome people and, it really opened our eyes in terms of what was out there. Eventually, we settled in a place called Vancouver, Canada. And whilst there, Lauren noticed people walking around with t-shirts showing pictures of wolves howling at the moon, bears, otters, really cheesy stuff that no local in their right mind would consider wearing. And Lauren came to me with this wild idea. She asked, why don't we start a fashion business making really cool t-shirts that represent Canada, ones that the locals would be proud to wear too. And I said, look, the only problem with that is that we have absolutely no experience with business, marketing, design, procurement, distribution, pretty much all of the things that you need to make a business successful. Well, I really didn't see how we could make her idea work. And anyway, I know that this sounds crazy, but after mulling it over for a few days, it just seemed like the right thing to do. So we put an advertisement in Craigslist, which happens to be similar to Trade Me here in New Zealand. And we hired a local designer. And shortly afterwards, we also found a guy who could make t-shirts for us. So at this point, I wish I could tell you that quickly afterwards, our business became an immediate success. But unfortunately, it just wasn't the case. In reality, it had taken us far longer than anticipated to launch. And by the time we were ready, it was heading into the Canadian winter. And I'm sure it comes as no surprise to you that selling t-shirts while it's snowing outside is pretty difficult. So there we were with thousands of dollars worth of stock sitting in our apartment with not selling a thing. And at this stage, we'd spent a lot of money, time and energy. And now it looked like we were going to fail miserably. So month after month, we had very little or no sales to show. And it honestly got quite depressing. And it was actually quite a low point in my life. And I felt like I had made a number of stupid decisions, ones that I should have probably known better about. And then I concluded, well, I've really only got two choices here. Sell these damn t-shirts or shut the business down. So I made a decision to give it another shot. I threw a bunch of our best t-shirts into a brown paper bag and I promised myself, I said I wouldn't come home until I'd sold those t-shirts. So I started walking up and down the main streets of Vancouver and I went into every store that looked like they might possibly be able to sell our shirts. Being winter, of course, shopkeepers didn't really want to buy t-shirts because they take up valuable rack space with merchandise that wouldn't sell. So most of them said, why don't you come back in spring when it starts to warm up again and we'll take a look at it then. So for hours I just kept on walking and walking, and as I did so it started raining and it started snowing, and unfortunately I didn't have a raincoat, so I became saturated and I became cold, and my resolve to sell those t-shirts quickly eroded as I became colder and colder. It was at that point that I passed right by one of Canada's biggest and oldest department stores, the Hudson Bay Company, and it was an 8-story building with massive footprint. And they sell all sorts of fancy clothes. But friends told me, look, you can't sell your t-shirts there because you're just too small. You're not important enough. So I just kept on walking, looking for other smaller shops to approach. And then I got about 3 blocks down the street and I just stopped. And I started having another conversation with myself and I said, look at you. You didn't even go into that store. How can you possibly expect to succeed if you don't even try? That's what a loser does. So at this point I just wanted to give up. To be honest, I was fed up and I'd spent all of this money, energy and time and nothing was working. But once again, I imagined being at the very end of my life, looking back, wondering what might have been if only I had had the courage to walk back into that department store and talk to someone. So reluctantly, I just turned around, headed back up the street and walked straight into that massive department store feeling very intimidated. And I approached the first cashier assistant that I saw and I said, look, I'm here, I'm just wondering who I need to speak to in order to sell my t-shirts. And she looked at me with a very puzzled look and she said, well, sir, you can buy t-shirts over there. It's pointing to one of the many t-shirt stands in the building. And I said, well, no, you've misunderstood what I'm talking about. I want to know how I can sell my t-shirts, and I held up my brown paper bag here. And so one thing led to another. We got talking, and she was nice enough to introduce me to one of the main floor managers. And we got talking, and she was really impressed by the t-shirts and the designs that we had and the quality. And she said, why don't you leave these with me, and I'll show them to some of my workmates. You never know. Something might come of it, but no promises. And I said, sure. But I mean, I really wasn't holding my breath. And at this point, I just was glad to be rid of those t-shirts and able to go home. Well, several weeks later, out of the blue, I received a phone call. And the lady on the end of the phone said, look, it's such and such here from, and I didn't catch her details, I have your t-shirts sitting on my desk and I'm interested in buying them. And I said, okay, I'll give them to you for half price. Just send me a check. That'll save me the hassle of having to come down and pick them up. And she said, no, you don't understand. I'm the main buyer for the Hudson Bay Company. I manage the whole region in British Columbia. And I'm looking for boutique brands for the upcoming Vancouver Winter Olympics 2010. And we're going to be the official store that sells official Olympic merchandise. And I'm interested in stocking your brand. When can we meet? Now, as you can imagine, that just totally blew my mind. One thing led to another. And after first order with that company of 3,500, not just t-shirts, but umbrellas and all sorts of merchandise. And that was just such an amazing injection into our business. Well, that led on to many other opportunities. We got onto the New York Times, which is an international publication, and a number of magazines and newspapers around the world. So it was a really interesting experience for myself and Lauren, and we learnt a tremendous amount in the process, especially about being resilient. And since then, we've built a number of other businesses. Some were successful, some weren't. But the key that you've got to keep in mind is that, you know, if you try things, you're going to fail a lot of the time. But when you do succeed, it's amazing, it's awesome. So in conclusion, I want to leave you with this. Starting your own journey can be as simple as writing down the things that you want on a piece of paper today and sticking that piece of paper on your bedroom wall and then just reading it every day. You'll be amazed at how quickly you can achieve those goals. Personally, my definition of success is having ample time to enjoy with my loved ones, with my family, my friends, and being able to have the time to pursue my endeavours. Well, I'm Wynne Pirini. I hope that you got something out of this video. I truly hope that, that you find an authentic experience in your life, happiness and fulfillment, and just go for it. Be awesome.